Hello there, welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake and this is the 2022 Kia Telluride SX. Now, the Telluride has been covered since it came out in 2020 for that 2020 model year. A ton of people have reviewed it, and it has become the official car of hot and or cool moms riding around the suburbs with their amber daytime running lights. We're going to talk about one thing that most other reviews don't mention in any sort of depth, and that is the towing capacity, because every Kia Telluride, every 2022 Telluride can tow up to 5,000 pounds. That is a substantial enough number. You can see I've got a car on a trailer behind me. We're going to get into all of that in just a second. Now, before we get too far into this, please take a second, like this video if you think this is a cool idea. You can subscribe to the channel if you think what we're doing is really rad, and if you don't like any of it, please leave a comment. I will absolutely reply with some pithy remark later on. So with that, on to the 2022 Telluride. Starting up front here, every 2022 Kia Telluride is powered by the same engine that has powered the Telluride since its inception in 2020. That is a 3.8-liter naturally aspirated V6. That means there's no turbocharging, no supercharging, and there's no electrification. You cannot get this car as a hybrid or a plug-in or anything like that. This engine makes 291 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. That's the tippy top of the rev range. It redlines at 6,500. And it makes peak torque at 5,200 RPM, and that torque figure is 262 pound-feet. All of that power and torque flows down to the ground through Kia's very own 8-speed torque converter automatic transmission. It is an in-house design. It is shared, much like the engine and the rest of the drivetrain, with this sister vehicle to the Telluride, the Hyundai Palisade. And then moving to the rest of the Telluride, these start life as front-wheel drive vehicles with optional all-wheel drive. That is on any trim level, and that all-wheel drive has a center diff lock control, so you don't totally leave things up to the car's computer. You can lock the center diff if you know you're going to be in some heavy snow or some other slippery surfaces. You can preemptively lock that center diff and keep all the wheels spinning and engaged. And looking around back on the 2022 Telluride, there is one thing that most reviewers just whiz right past, and it matters a lot to the right people, and that is the trailer tow package. It is an $800 package that can be valuable whether you're towing a trailer or not, and here's why. First of all, you get, of course, that hitch on the back. It's got a standard 2-inch receiver. It is rated for 5,000 pounds of towing with a 500-pound tongue weight. You also get a 7-pin trailer connector for your wiring back here. So if you've got a trailer that needs electronic brakes, the plug is all here, the wiring is all here, ready to go. The third thing you get is wiring up to the dashboard. Kia gives you wiring and a little pigtail if you need to plug in an electronic trailer brake controller. Some trailers, like this U-Haul trailer I'm using, and some boats use surge brakes, but a lot of trailers use electronic braking, and you need the wiring to work with it. So it's nice that Kia runs the wiring all the way up there, although no trailer brake controller of their own is offered. And the final thing you get with the trailer tow package that can be helpful whether you're towing a trailer or not is self-leveling rear suspension. Now, some outlets got this a little incorrect when the Telluride was first launched in 2020 and claimed that it was air suspension. It is not air suspension. It is a different style, and if you're an old Volvo or Saab nerd, first of all, I don't know why you're watching a video about a Kia crossover, but regardless, you'll recognize the term Nevomat. That is a style of shock absorber that was developed by Sox. They're a suspension company. The Nevomat style of shock absorber is load leveling without any external pumps or reservoirs or compressors or anything. It is all contained within the body of the shock absorber. And the way it works, in very simple terms, is there's fluid in a reservoir, and as you put more weight on the back of the Telluride, that fluid gets forced up into the valves, the passages of the shock absorber, and that more or less pumps the shocks back up to compensate for the weight. So the fluid gets displaced, pumps up the rear, and you're good to go. The one downside of the Nevomat style shocks is that when you first hook up the trailer, everything is going to be slammed on the ground because it takes a mile or two of driving for all of that fluid to equalize and pump up the shock absorbers. So you'll notice when I first hooked up this trailer and put this Jetta on the back, it was Stance Nation back here. The whole trailer tongue and the back of the Kia were squatted pretty good. But as soon as I drove a couple miles, you can really feel it even push up the rear of the Telluride and get everything load level. And the other thing with the Nevomat suspension is that, in theory, the damping rates of the shocks don't change even when they've pumped back up, which means your ride comfort and ride quality should not suffer when they have pumped up. Now, the nice thing about load leveling, even if you're not towing, is that if you're going to have a lot of people in the vehicle, a lot of things in the vehicle be up on that top of the payload rating, you might want the load leveling just to keep everything level, keep your headlights level at night, that sort of thing. Now you can see I'm ready to tow. I've got a trailer I rented from U-Haul. These trailers are popular and for good reason. They're pretty easy to set up and you can tow them with almost anything if it's rated for enough weight. Pretty much anything rated for 5,000 pounds will do it. And I've got a Volkswagen Jetta borrowed from a friend of mine here. So this whole combination weighs right about 5,000 pounds. The Jetta is a fairly lightweight vehicle, and this is more of a base model Jetta, so there's not a lot going on to add to the curb weight. The U-Haul trailers weigh approximately 1,000,000 pounds. These weigh over 2,000 pounds, which is really heavy for an open trailer, even if they're made of steel. If you buy a trailer about this size, it'll weigh somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 pounds. These are more like 2,100, 2,200. So if you're gonna own your own trailer, you'll get a little bit more weight back for what you can load on it and still be under that 5,000 pound capacity. I mentioned these U-Haul trailers have surge brakes, which means all I need is a 4-pin wiring connector. So I've got an adapter hooked up for the wiring on this trailer, and otherwise we are ready to go. So let's get behind the wheel of this 2022 Telluride and see how it tows this Jetta with a U-Haul trailer. All right, so let's talk towing with this 2022 Kia Telluride. Now, there is no real tow mode with this vehicle, but you do have the option with the transmission of putting it in a manual gate over here so you can pick your own gears. Definitely helpful on longer grades. I've also got this in sport mode, which will more or less tweak the transmission tuning so that it can hold the gears a little bit longer, which will be helpful accelerating, especially away from stoplights. Hopefully that'll help keep the transmission from hunting too much. This is an 8-speed, like I said, but you want to make sure on little grades where it can, pick between 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, it doesn't, hunt too badly, because that'll heat up your transmission fluid, and that's a quick way to have problems with your transmission. Now, getting on the highway here, it doesn't have to work super duper hard. Like I mentioned, the peak power is made at 6,000 RPM, and then your peak torque is made at 5,200. So you are gonna have to work it. There's no boost, there's no supercharger. That's okay though. That's how a lot of people towed for decades and still do tow. So you don't necessarily need boost. Does it make things a little bit easier? Of course. Is it required? Not at all. The perk as well is that the 3.8 in this thing actually sounds pretty good when you wind it out a little bit. So when it's sitting between 3,000 and 5,000 RPM, it's not the worst thing to listen to. And I mentioned it's always good to check your payload because, like I said, this one has 1,100 pounds of payload. 1,178 pounds actually is the real number there. That is pretty good even if you're looking to tow a car like this Jetta. Obviously the U-Haul trailer is really heavy. If you're looking to tow something a little bit lighter, let's say you own your own trailer, those can be 1,800 pounds or so you get more weight back for a car instead of just dealing with really heavy trailer weight. This I think would be a fine tow vehicle for a small camper, a small boat, and then obviously a smaller car, something on an open trailer like a Miata, a Honda S2000, a Subaru BRZ, even a BMW if you've got it gutted and caged and everything for racing. Those can be light enough to put behind a vehicle like this. As far as other things with this Telluride and towing, it feels pretty good as far as suspension and body control. I really think it does a nice job. Obviously those Nevomat style shocks in the back for load leveling pumped everything up just a little bit. I did feel a little bit of raise from the rear. It's not like an air suspension where you feel it really pump you up. You feel it a little bit. The nice thing is that the damping rates don't necessarily change with the shocks that work like this. So the good thing is the Telluride has pretty good body control over bumps and everything unloaded, and it still feels really nice with the trailer. So when you hit dips in the road, you're not feeling everything really, bounce and take a second for the rear to catch up with the rest of the vehicle. It still feels nice and controlled with all that weight on the trailer tongue. Now, as I have my turn signal on here to change lanes, Kia does this nice thing where they've got cameras on the sides of the vehicle in the mirrors, and that lets you see down the side of the car. It puts a blind spot camera in the center of your gauges. Between the mirrors and those blind spot cameras, it actually works really nicely to give you a really good view of the car and the trailer all the way down. So pretty impressive there. Now, as we take this off ramp, it's a little bit of an uphill. Obviously the Telluride's gonna downshift a little bit. But yeah, even with all these bumps, everything feels pretty good pretty relaxed. You can hear that trailer is nice and loud back there. That's something you're gonna get with any unibody vehicle because every trailer hitch receiver has a teeny bit of slop in it, and a unibody just transmits some of that sound forward. So just something that you're gonna deal with. There are companies that make, you know, slop removal kits that are kind of shims for the hitch. So you could try it. I don't have one with this U-Haul trailer. And the other nice thing with the trailer package on this Telluride, if you look in the owner's manual, they do allow sway control with this vehicle. That's not something you get with every unibody, especially you see it with some of the European brands, simply because it's just not something that they do over in Europe. They don't have those sorts of hitches, so they don't really bother to test and certify and say, you know, we guarantee it's okay. Kia actually does say you can use sway control with the Telluride. As I come up on my exit here, slowing down, the Telluride has plenty of brake, obviously. Everything still feels nice and controlled. Again, you know, good body control through an off-ramp, carrying a teeny bit of speed, and we have a stop sign here at the very end, so I want to make sure we can come to a nice controlled stop, and again, nice and easy. Pulling out, again, just in sport mode. This is just a run up to about 45 miles an hour. The transmission shifts nice and quickly, which is good, and it's pretty decisive in its gear changes, so it's not like it's unsure of what it wants to do. If you heard a little bit of, you know, revving and wow, 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 that was a little bit of snow there at the stop sign. We've had some snow and ice in the DC area the last few days, so every so often you get a little bit of wheel spin away from a stop sign or stoplight. Obviously, if you're going to have a trailer at all on the back of it, you do have to measure your payload and, you know, take into account how many people you want to have in the Telluride itself, or how many things. If you're going to be pulling a car, you know, if you're going to a racetrack, do you bring a spare set of wheels, a box of tools? All of that counts for payloads. You really have to think about it. If you're going to be pulling a camper with your family or a boat with your family, think about how much everybody weighs. Are you going to bring luggage with you and the camper? You just need to do a little bit of math. It's not like the payload is super, super low for a vehicle of this size and this tow capacity, but it's always worth doing the math to make sure you're not overloaded for the sake of safety. Very good tow vehicle for what it is, for the weight it's rated for. I think Kia has done a lot to make this, you know, do very well. Definitely doesn't seem to be struggling with the weight behind it, even though it doesn't have boost or anything. It's doing a nice job. So kudos to Kia. I think they've thought through the tow package and the tow capabilities they were willing to certify this vehicle for. Obviously, everybody at this point follows that SAE test. So the tow rating is, you know, 5,000 pounds, up a 30% grade with the AC on in Death Valley in August. Like it's a, you know, a tough test to pass. And 5,000 pounds is what Kia was able to certify this for. I think for most people under most towing conditions that aren't as hard as that SAE test, this is going to be a totally fine tow vehicle. Obviously, if you need to pull more weight, you're not going to be buying a Telluride. But for the people looking to own a Telluride, pull what they're pulling, this does a very nice job. All right, and that is it for this towing review with the 2022 Kia Telluride. I hope this was very helpful for everyone who's looking into towing with a Telluride or its twin, the Hyundai Palisade. If you like what we're up to, like I said, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to follow us elsewhere on the internet, we can be found on other social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Out Motorsports. We also have a TikTok, and I have no idea what to do with it, but we're there. If you'd like to connect with a community of other LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors, please head over to outmotorsports.com. We have a whole community over there, and we would love to have you join us. Till next time, please stay safe, be well, we'll see you again soon.